Welcome to my How Healthy Are You weekly educational podcast. My name is Dr. Thomas Brewer. I'm a PhD chemist. Today is September 6th, 2021, and I believe this is podcast number 100. So for this podcast, I'm going to be talking about water, a lot of misconceptions and myths about water, and I'm also going to talk about how much to drink and some global issues regarding water. So the global issues is I look at it as a chemist, as what's really going on with some of the things we are hearing about water. So to start with how much to drink and the various myths that have been told for decades. So the biggest myth is that you need 8 glasses of water per day. Now, everyone says this, but nobody knows the source. So if you say a lie long enough and strong enough, well, pretty soon everybody thinks it's the truth. But it's not true. It's a myth. You do not need 8 glasses of water per day, just like you don't need to drink half your body weight in water. So you take your body weight in pounds, and half of that should be ounces of water that you consume per day. None of that is true. That it actually will cause trouble if you're not in a warm, dry climate and working outside where you're losing a lot of water. So military personnel working in a desert, that's different. But for the average person, that is strictly a myth. Now, another myth is that 60% of our body is water. Well, that's not quite right. Actually, 0% of our body is water. Now, where they're getting that from is the water that's in our body is really a mixture full of electrolytes. And electrolytes, we're going to talk about, is quite important because you don't want to deplete your electrolytes, and you also don't want them to get too concentrated. And that's the reason we drink water, is when the electrolytes get too concentrated, but we can actually deplete them by drinking too much water. We'll get to that later, but 60% of the body is water. Now it's 0%. It's not pure water. And when people say 60% of your body is water, they're leading you to believe that 60% of your body is pure water, and none of it, none of the water in our body is actually pure water. Another myth is the body doesn't know when it's thirsty, and sometimes you may hear people say, well, when you're thirsty, you need to eat, or when you're hungry, you need to drink, and things like that. All garbage, all a myth. So our bodies are designed to perceive hunger, thirst, hot, cold, etc. We have perfectly good sensory systems in our body. We do know when we're thirsty, and the bottom line is you should drink water when you're thirsty. So that's a myth, that the body doesn't know when it's thirsty. Another common myth is that water flushes out fat. Well, that would be nice, but nobody has ever lost any fat by drinking water. The reason is water and fat are completely incompatible. So chemically, we would use the term water is hydrophilic and fat is hydrophobic. So the hydro part means water, philic means love or like, and phobic means doesn't like. So anything that mixes with water is hydrophilic. Anything that mixes in oil is hydrophobic. So this is common chemical terms, and the same really works when they say water flushes out fat. They're incompatible. They're totally different with respect to what they interact with. So water does not interact with fat. Fat does not interact with water. So it doesn't flush out fat. It does not even interact with fat. And this is just laughable that it's a myth and people believe it. Another myth is that water flushes out toxins. Now, I can see where this comes from because it makes a little bit of sense, but when you think about it, toxins are actually fat soluble. So back to what I was talking about, toxins are hydrophobic. They're fat soluble, so they don't like water, hydrophobic. Well, if toxins are fat soluble, water can't flush them out. Water would only be able to flush out something that's hydrophilic, meaning water soluble. So the typical toxins are pesticides and herbicides and drugs, even excess supplements we consume, the garbage supplements out there, the fillers, the binders, the synthetic active ingredients, commercial made active ingredients. Sometimes they're called industrial grade supplements. All of those are hydrophobic and not going to be flushed out with water. They're very fat soluble, and they'll accumulate in our fats. And that's the problem when we want to detox. We have to get these fats broken down, and whatever's being held in the fat, we've got to flush that out of the body. Water won't do that. There's other ways to do that, and that's one of the reasons we take good enzymes, because enzymes will have a lipase component. Lipase enzyme digests lipids, which is fats, and that's a way to break down toxins, or at least the fat that's holding the toxins. Another common one, and you'll hear this from dermatologists even, is that water helps dry skin. Not quite. Actually, vitamin A deficiency is what leads to dry skin. Same with a lot of joint problems. That's a vitamin A deficiency, a fat-soluble vitamin. And water actually does not help with dry skin. Water is wonderful. We need it. It's part of all of our cells. It's part of most of our body when mixed with electrolytes, but it does not help dry skin. Usually a skin doctor or dermatologist will mention that, oh, your skin's dry, you need to drink more water, so you drink more water. Well, that leads to problems. Too much water will actually flush out the electrolytes, such as sodium. And when you drink too much water, and it's different for everyone, and it's different depending on the day and the humidity and how much you're outside and how much water you're losing through perspiration. But if you're drinking too much water, you'll get organ swelling, you'll get brain swelling, and even your hands and feet will swell. And what that means is you flushed out these electrolytes by drinking too much water. It's a fine line. Sometimes it's a Goldilocks scenario, just like blood pressure, cholesterol level, heart rate. There's this range you want to be in, and that is true with your water consumption. Many people are consuming too much water because they're following that rule I said at the beginning, to drink 8 glasses of water per day or half your body weight in ounces per day. And they're just drinking, and they're urinating so often they're going to impact their health in a negative way, because they're going to be losing electrolytes. So what is good, what is common, what is normal for most people is about 2 to 3 glasses per day, which is what a lot of people do drink per day. Those that are drinking far more than that, 8, 9, 10 glasses per day, unless they're getting or working outside and perspiring quite a bit, they're just going to run into trouble. Now, when I look at someone's blood, I can see any kidney stress, and the red blood cells will have spikes on them, and they're called echinocytes. Now, sometimes that's caused from being dehydrated, but most of the time it's from kidney stress, from consuming too much protein, and the body has to break down all the protein that doesn't get absorbed. So I talked about that a little bit when I talked about eggs and how great the protein source in it protein source of eggs is, and that most of the protein in eggs is getting absorbed, or at least it's the best protein-rich food for absorption, and it's still under 50%. It's around 47, 48% absorption. So when you look at these protein sources that are 30%, 20%, under 20%, there's a lot of protein that the body has to get rid of. It has to break down, and it leads to kidney stress. And that's why people will see these spikes in their or on their red blood cells. People think, well, I'm not drinking enough water. Well, it's not that. It's because they're not metabolizing their proteins well, either through not taking enough enzymes or just eating the wrong sources of protein sources that have a very low efficiency of conversion to lean body tissue. So the bottom line here is that the body adjusts to water consumption with urination. So the body will adjust. One way to know if you're very dehydrated is your urine will have the color of a tannish brown. A good analogy is apple juice. So that is a problem. You're definitely dehydrated when your urine has that yellowish brown color of apple juice. Normally, you'd want your urine to be pale yellow. That is ideal water consumption. So that is a good metric to determine whether you're hydrated or not. The other is, bottom line, drink when you're thirsty. All right, so that was the first part about how much water to drink, a lot of myths that got dispelled. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about global issues that we're hearing a lot about water linked to global warming and rising ocean levels, etc. So the first thing we all have to remember, the chemical formula of water is H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom. The number of atoms of hydrogen and oxygen on the planet are the same, except for what was launched into space. So these atoms are the same. What happens is they get combined in different ways, and that's most of the challenge. With water, we have 3 common phases: solid, liquid, gas. So solid water is ice. Liquid water we're all familiar with. That's what we drink. And then gaseous water would be the water vapor in our air or steam, something like that. Now, it takes energy to convert water to the different phases. So one thing that's common is ice and these ice caps converting to liquid and, for instance, liquid water turning to gas. So if I take liquid water and I want to convert it to gas, it's going to take energy. But the opposite is true. If I take gaseous water and convert it to a liquid, it will release energy. Now, if we look with liquid water and ice, so in order to convert liquid water to ice, it doesn't take energy. It gives away energy. Energy is produced. But if I take ice and want to make liquid water, so solid to liquid, that takes energy. So it's all about these energy conversions. And the challenge we have with water is that we don't have enough purified water on the planet for all of the people all over the world. It does take energy to purify water, just like it takes energy to convert liquid water to a gas. And it also takes a lot of energy to move water. So we'll have areas of the world where there's flooding, areas of the world where there's a drought. Wouldn't it be nice if we could move the water from the flooded area to the drought area? Yes, that would be nice, but it takes a lot of energy. And to provide energy tends to utilize water. And this is the big dilemma in the world right now. Should we use electricity, but in order to make these solar panels the essentially renewable energy or energy coming from the sun. Solar energy, right? A limitless supply. There's a lot of pollution generated to make these solar panels. So this is a big issue, and moving water and purifying water is a problem because it takes energy, and it takes a lot of energy even to make these solar panels. So the energy issue is going to be with us, and it is not very simple. It's not. There isn't a simple solution here, but I want everyone to realize that we have the water. It's just a matter of purifying it and moving it, because we've got the same amount of water on the planet that we've had for thousands of years. Okay, I also want to mention, since I'm doing a podcast on a holiday, I'm not going to be doing a podcast in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, no podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening, and as always, please don't keep me a secret.